Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Yeah, I was just thinking about one of my cats here that walked across the mixer and prevented me from jumping on the broadcast yesterday morning, until the last couple of seconds. I had to figure out exactly which buttons this cat stepped on, crawling across the studio desk. Well, I'm all excited today. It's Friday. And I hope you're all cocked and locked. And hour number 1 is Cathy in Ohio, domestic engineering. Hour number 2, Bert in California will be dialing in, and he will be interviewing me about preparedness. If you'd like to call, we will pay for the call, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Jason is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at Genesis Communications Network. Thank you, Jason. Welcome, Cathy.
Good morning, Vince. How are you?
I am so well. I really am. I'm delighted to be broadcasting with you today. And I'm looking forward to learning about domestic engineering and how we can make it better. We're locked down in a lot of places, either voluntarily or involuntarily. We've got to make the best of what we have. It's difficult to get some things, like toilet paper right now is more difficult to get, at least around here. Paper products, you can find them online, but right under that it says out of stock. I believe that prices are going to continue going up, like cat food, dog food, things like that. Sam's Club has, if you have that $100 a year membership, free shipping, and it doesn't work so well all the time because now they charge you. Even though you have free shipping, you still have to pay $3.99 to have some items shipped, and that's Sam's Club. So companies are changing the rules mid-game. They lie to us. They cheat us. And there's not much we can do. Not much we can do right now other than, expose the criminality and the lies and the cheating. And so here we are. And so, Cathy, you've got some suggestions for us.
I do. I have some sewing tips, and these are not difficult. I have some grocery and some garden ideas that I'm doing right now and dealing with right now. So I'd like to talk about whichever of those you would like to talk about first.
Well, why don't we start with the sewing? We'll do it in the order that you mentioned. Okay. Sewing.
Okay, Vince, about 2 years ago, I got a set of sheets, and they were too short. You couldn't even tuck them in at the very bottom, and they were expensive sheets. And a friend had given me some because she was moving and she didn't need them. So what I did was I have rolls of muslin on a roll that I keep in my sewing room, but I also had old sheets that I could use, like white or beige or what really doesn't matter, but these happen to be like a beige color. So what I did was I figured out how much I needed at the bottom of the sheet, and I cut off the old sheet. Let's say I needed 12 inches. So I would cut 13 just so I would have enough for a seam allowance. So I cut that off the old sheet, and I added it to the new sheet. And you can either double stitch it, or you, like me, I stitched it, and I have what is called a serger, which it cuts and it finishes at the same time. It gives you like 4 times strength, and it finishes the seam so it won't ravel. So I did that on 2 separate sets of sheets that I had because they would never stay tucked in. there just wasn't enough length on the sheet. So that's something that if you have sheets that you're having that issue with, you can buy cotton, but it's expensive to buy it that way. So if you happen to have old sheets, or you can even buy, like, muslin is fairly inexpensive. You can buy a piece. You can even piece it if you have to. I happen to have it wide enough for what I needed. But you can piece it because it's going to be tucked in and nobody's going to see it anyway.
I've got a comment about that. So back in the 1970s when I was at the university, there were some hippies, and they were pretty clever about some things. And what happened is, like, sometimes they would outgrow their blue jeans, like guys. And what they would do is they would extend the length of the legs of the blue jeans by adding another kind of material around where the legs were too short of the blue jeans, so 2 or 3 inches, mostly 2 inches. So it could be some kind of a frilly fabric, that was durable. And they would just sew it on. And what girls would do is they would take a pair of blue jeans and they would rip them with a ripper, and they would make a skirt out of a pair of slacks, if you will, blue jean slacks. Have you seen those, Cathy?
Oh, yeah, I think I did that with some of the jeans when I grew. Some people use like a piece of fringe for decorative women, or they took a piece of like lace or a pretty trim, or people even did that with their skirt. As you grew, as your skirt got too short, you would add a piece of trim 2-3 inches on the bottom of it. But yeah, I did that while I was growing in high school. If they got too short, I would just add a piece of any kind of ribbon or trim to the bottom, or something that looked nice. It wasn't like girly looking, but something like that.
Right. So what we're talking about is necessity is the mother of invention. So when things get difficult, you figure out how to do things that maybe you might not have done in the past. And the Great Depression, the first Great Depression, was where a lot of that happened. That's where my parents, I guess, learned that you don't throw it away until it's absolutely positively worn out. Absolutely. Can't do anything else with it, then you can throw it away. But if there's another use for it, you still keep it. And that's what we do. I mean, think about even newspapers. I don't know if anybody takes the newspaper anymore, but, there were those days back in the 50s, 60s, 70s where people got the newspaper delivered. And what do you do with the newspaper? Well, some people would put them in the garage and then tie them up and then, send them off to be recycled. Some people would use them for bedding for animals. Okay. Some people would spread them around the garage floor if they were going to paint, some furniture or something like that, outdoor furniture. So there was always uses, second, third, fourth uses for things. And that's the way it is here at the farm. When we get things shipped in from ordering online, and sometimes we even order dog food online, cat food. And sometimes it comes in boxes, and we keep the boxes. We cut them so that they lie flat. And then the next thing that we do with them is if we're going to work in their automotive shop or under a tractor, that's where they go to pick up the spills or to catch the spills. And then when they have too much oil on them, then they go in the fire and they produce heat. That's what we do. We don't throw anything away until it's absolutely beyond using for another time. That's how it is here at the farm. And is it that way at your place, Cathy?
Yeah, Vince, I've been saving newspapers, and I went out in my garden and I tried to put them down, but the wind's been so incredibly strong here lately that it's really tough to even work out and keep them from blowing away before I can get them down. But I'll put down 3-4 layers at least, maybe just a whole section. And then I've been putting a piece of cardboard over the top and chopped up leaves. And then I rolled out like some old fencing, and I put fencing down and put like cinder block on top of it just so it protects my garden, and I can use that as a source of mulch and enriching the garden. But yeah, I do the same thing. I save all that. And my husband uses the cardboard under his vehicles when he's working on them or changing the oil.
Yep. And those, when you put newspaper or cardboard in your garden and you lay it flat, it keeps the moisture there. and it's like a magnet for worms. And the worms really help amend the soil. So it's a great way to go. We usually use plastic because here's my thought on this. If the box is virgin and it's made in the United States of America, I think it might be safe. But if the box is a reused Chicom box or a box from abroad, I would not use them because who knows what was in it before it was cardboard. Okay. So and you can tell the virgin boxes, they're a different color, different feel, different texture, and they're certainly stronger. But if you look at the Chinese boxes, they're flimsy. They can barely make the trip, to your home. So you might want to keep that in mind, class. Cathy, what else do you have for us?
Vince, I know I mentioned this before, but it's something that I'll just quickly bring it up again. We were talking about sheets or towels or washcloths. If you have the opportunity, just run a row of stitching all the way around it and keep those stitches locked in. If you look at the stitching on a lot of the washcloth sheets and towels now, a lot of it's pretty long. It's normally supposed to be 12 to 14 stitches per inch, but a lot of them are 6 to 8 stitches per inch now. And when you get to let's say you have a washcloth and the edges are folded over, it's like a big bump at each end of it. It's like thicker because they just folded that over. There's a little tool called a Jean-a-majig, like jeans, like G-E-A-N. And it looks like a little plate and it has an upside down U in it. And you put that under your presser foot. So if you're getting into a heavy seam, like a jean seam on the inseam where it's thick, or you're doing like edges of these washcloths or towels that are so thick, you can put it behind your presser foot and it keeps the presser foot level so that you can actually sew on it. So they're not, mine is really old. I don't even know what they run now. I don't think they'd be more than $10 or $12. But I use mine all the time for any kind of a seam, because otherwise if your presser foot goes way up, a lot of times it will force the needle forward or backward and you'll break your needle or it just won't go through it. So I always recommend slow way down when you get to those seams, and you'll preserve your towel that way, because once it starts to unravel a seam and it goes into the towel, then except for just using a zigzag, doesn't look that nice if you do it that way. But you'll preserve your towels and your sheets if you do that. So I'm just recommending that if you can get one of those little tools, again, it's called a Jean-a-majig. And if you look online, they still have them online. But that's something I always recommend. I spent like an hour the other day. I bought a bunch of washcloths, and I just went all the way around on all the washcloths just to reinforce them so that as I wash them and use them, they don't start fraying and coming apart on the edges.
Mm-hmm. 2 quick comments, class. Presser foot, P-R-E-S-S-E-R, foot. That's the foot on the sewing machine that presses down on the material that you're sewing. And Jean-a-majig is spelled Jean-A-M-A-J-I-G. Jean-a-majig. We'll be right back. Cathy's with us, and we're learning domestic engineering today. And if you want to buy a Jean-a-majig, you can find them on the internet. They're about $2.99. Unless you get it on Amazon and they raise the price because they have, shipping included. Cathy, what's next?
Vince, when you have a pair of shorts, pajama bottoms, anything with an elastic waistband, they call it a casing. It's just that the fabric is folded over and sewed so that you can insert elastic through there. A lot of times, as you wear them, the elastic doesn't last that long. It gets brittle. But you can open it up with a seam ripper, just maybe 2-3 inches. And if the elastic is something where you can pull it out, you can just cut it, pull that elastic out, and put a new piece of elastic in. What I recommend is take a big safety pin anything you can get into that opening, put it on one end of the elastic, just put it in, close it, and then just scrunch it all the way through. Measure, well, I should have said before you do that, measure it around your waist or wherever the area is going. It could be your wrist if it's a cuff or something. Measure it, add an inch or two just so that you've got enough room to work with. Then I take a piece of a safety pin and I work it all the way through the elastic and I pull it through. And then I take the other piece, once I get it all the way through, I run both of those through that safety pin and through the fabric, and I close it, and then I try it on. Then you can adjust it to how tight or how loose you want it. Then all you have to do is stitch that elastic a few times, and then tuck it in. I mean, it'll go back in the casing, and then stitch the casing down again. Just stitch it. I know it's hard to visualize because it's something that's much easier if I could show it. But sometimes you have waistbands where they sewed the elastic all the way through where you can't take it out, like gym shorts or those nylon basketball shorts. So if you're not going to tuck your shirt in, what you can do with those is you can take a piece of like bias tape, or for a woman you could take like a wide ribbon, and you could sew on the top of that ribbon and then the bottom of that ribbon all the way around and leave an opening. Finish the edges, leave an opening of an inch or two, and then you could put elastic through that, or you could put like a drawstring. If it was a guy, you could put like a big drawstring so you could still use them. Because a lot of times the fabric is fine, it's just the elastic gets brittle, especially if you put them in the dryer a lot. So you can reuse your shorts that way. I didn't want to go on forever about it, but it was just something that it saves you from having to buy new pajama bottoms or something where your elastic is worn out.
Mm-hmm. Cathy, how about what causes the elastics to fail prematurely? At least in my world, I believe that washing clothes with chlorine bleach causes the fabric to fail faster, meaning wear out faster. I also believe that washing in hot water rather than just cold water causes the fabric to wear out faster. And of course, you mentioned the dryer. Using an electric or gas dryer causes the fabric to wear out faster. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with all three, and age has something to do with it. Sometimes the elastic will just wear out. Like I've gone in my drawer where I keep my elastic, and sometimes the old elastic is just gets brittle, just sitting there because it's got that rubber component to it. The other thing is a lot of times I'll hang up anything with delicate elastic in it. I hang it up to dry on a hanger or with a clothespin if it's winter in the house, but in the summer if it's outside. But yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. So what I learned from my mom, probably in the 1960s is if she bought some clothing, let's say a top or a shirt or slacks, she would say to the salesperson, may I take that on the hanger rather than have them fold it and put it in the bag? And they'd say, sure. Because they would throw the hangers away back then, the plastic hangers. Literally, they just throw them away. So for, 40 years, we've been collecting hangers. And those are the hangers that we use to hang our clothes in the house or outside. We hang jeans on them, we hang socks on them, we hang shirts on them. And that is our clothes dryer. And we have a clothes dryer. We just never used it. Cathy in Ohio's with us, and she's teaching us about domestic engineering. And Sharon is calling in, another USA Prepares instructor from Montana. Welcome, Sharon.
Good morning. Cathy, I get such a kick out of listening to you. We think so similar. I have extended blankets that kept coming untucked by using old sheet. But what I wanted to know is if maybe you would be willing to share your homemade dishwasher soap recipe. You mentioned a few weeks ago, and I've been trying to catch it and see if you would come back on with that. We just recently got a good dishwasher for once in my life, and I would rather not have to buy the little tabs and everything. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that, I would really appreciate it. And I just really, really enjoy all your ideas, and I get a kick out of it.
Oh, thank you, Sharon. Yes, I have it right here because I realized I forgot to share it the other day. So I have it right here. What I do is I mix it up in a big Tupperware container. But it's proportion this is the proportion. It's equal parts of borax and baking soda. And I normally do like 4 cups each. And then I have been adding a little bit of citric acid in my dishwasher, the little cup, the dry cup, maybe a teaspoon or two. And it really seems to get rid of any of the buildup that gets into your dishwasher and leaves spots on your glasses. I buy it in bulk. I buy it in like 10-pound bags. Unfortunately, I can only find it online. I can't find it locally, but it's about $22 to $24 for a 10-pound bag online. But I take the borax and the baking soda and I just put it in a big bowl and I stir it up real good. And then I put about a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half into the little cup. And then, I have another little opening right next to the big cup, and I put the citric acid in there, and that's what I use.
Oh, that sounds great. I actually have all those items, too, so that will work. Excellent. That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you so much.
May I make one comment before you go, Sharon?
Sure.
I just wanted to tell both of you ladies that each one of you has commented about the other off air with me in glowing terms. So I just wanted to say, Sharon, Cathy has spoken very highly of you, and Cathy, Sharon has spoken very highly of you. So I just wanted to share that. And thank you both.
Thanks a lot. Okay, I'll let you get back to what you're saying. I can't wait to hear more. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Now, that was Sharon in Montana. Cathy, what's next?
Vince, I have a couple just real quick sewing things, and then I've got some grocery things I'd like to get out if I can. If you're sewing, or even if you know you have thread that is really old, you can put it in the freezer for a couple days, and it will re-moisturize it. And a lot of times you can tell if you're sewing on your machine if the thread keeps breaking. Sometimes it's a needle issue, sometimes it's a fabric or a tension issue, but if all those things are good, then just try putting that thread in the freezer for a day or two and seeing if that doesn't help. And if it doesn't help, then I'll just throw it away or you could use it for hand sewing, but even then it's kind of brittle. But that was just one quick thing.
Now, when you do this, Cathy, when you do this, do you put it in the freezer in a baggie that's sealed, or do you let the moisture from the surrounding food, etc., bags, boxes, accumulate on the thread? And then when you take it out, do you put it in a baggie, or do you just put it in raw and take it out raw?
I've just done the latter, to put it in raw, take it out raw.
Okay. All right.
Stick it on a little shelf where it's not on the food, and just let it freeze for a couple days. And it just re-moisturizes it, because I do have thread. Some of the otter colors, that's older. And then if you just let it come back to room temperature, it only takes a few hours. And then you could try using it again later on that day or the next day.
Mm-hmm. We have thread here at our farmhouse that's 100 years old. And, I've inherited it. It's been passed down, and it still works. And it was made out of cotton. It's so old that it was wound on wooden spools. And they were stamped with it.
I have some of that too.
Yeah. From the 1920s. Yes, please continue, Cathy.
The other thing I wanted to mention is we both have 2 recliners in our family room. And even though we try to take our shoes off most of the time, it's still, when you sit there, whether you have your socks on or slippers, in our last house, we both got a stain in front of there just from the use of sitting there having sitting in the same chair all the time. So what I did was I went to the store and I found small little carpets that with a binding on them that matched the carpet pretty similar to what we have. And I put one in front of each chair. That way, if we move the furniture around, you're not going to see a spot where we wore that carpet out or we stained it. And I actually went around with my sewing machine, and I stitched the binding because I could see that it was coming off because the stitches were huge. They were probably only 3 stitches per inch. So I went on my machine and I stitched the binding on it really good. So that was just 2 tips. Like, it helps preserve your carpeting if you are sitting in the same chair all the time or in the same position, whether it's at a desk or something. If you just put like a little mat or a carpet there in front of you, you can kind of help preserve your carpeting.
Okay, I've got a comment. It's slightly tangential. When we built our house, we bought shingles, and we bought shingles to cover the roof, and I bought extra. And I bought them all of the same dye lot. So if you buy shingles and you order enough and then you do the job a couple months later and you go buy some more, you might find it's a different dye lot, and the shingles that are the same brand, same manufacturer, same color might not match because it'd be a different dye lot. So what I do and have done is I buy more shingles than I need, and I keep them so that, you know, when the storms hit and some of the shingles blow off or need to be replaced, I have the same exact dye lot that was used when we built the house. So similar way of protecting what you have and caring for it. So I absolutely agree with what you're saying, Cathy. And I'm in the studio right now, and under the studio desk is an Oriental rug. And to protect and I have a chair with 5 casters on it. And I have a mat, one of those plastic mats. So when I roll around on the chair, it doesn't destroy the rug. So I'm with you. Why ruin what you have if you can protect it for, you know, a small amount of extra expenditure? I'm with you.
Yeah, it just makes sense, Vince. I mean, especially when you've learned a mistake you've done before. You learn from it.
Mm-hmm, right. Are you going to talk about groceries next?
Yeah. Okay, Vince, I was doing a little research, and I came across some facts for people who shop at Aldi. Now, I know that we're not out that much, and I'm not out that much, but there are times when I do go there for certain things like fresh produce. If I'm going out, I'll go in. But there's a few things that I learned that will help save if you go to Aldi. They have a double back guarantee. So if you buy something that's of poor quality, if you go back to the store, they will give you double back your money if there's something wrong with the product. If it's moldy or broken, or as long as it's like their product. So that's one thing, and they will replace it for you too. The other thing I learned was they have their own spices there, and most of them are costing around $1. And I learned that those are from McCormick. They're the leftover McCormick spices. So you're getting a pretty good quality spice if you need them at this particular time. And some of the stores, from what I'm reading, the spices are hit and miss. They're limited. You can't find like it's fully stocked like you used to be able to do. So that I thought was a pretty good piece of advice. Like, at least you know you're getting something that's halfway decent. The other thing they mentioned was Wednesday mornings are when they normally when they have markdowns, because that's when their ads are. Their ads are from Wednesday to the next Wednesday. So when you're going in the store, you'll see little stickers on manager special or markdowns. And from what I understand, most stores mark them down on Wednesday morning. So that's something to look for, especially if, like, okay, I can plan my week around going on that day. You might be able to save some money. I haven't gotten on, but what they said was there's an online employee page where some of the employees share secrets about some of their sales and what they do. It's called Reddit, REDIT. I just found out about it. I've just been real busy with grandkids, so I haven't had a chance to get online to look it out. But apparently they get on and share some of their tips and their secrets about what they have on sale or what you can do. The other thing they said was if you are in the store and you see an employee or the employee manager, you can ask the manager, do you have any markdown? And some of the people that I was reading the comments online said that, let's say they had cereal or whatever item they had, they would go to the manager and said, oh, do you have any markdowns? And they said sometimes the manager will say, oh, are you going to buy that? And they'll mark down certain items for them, just as a courtesy to the customer. I didn't know that. I've never done it, but I didn't know that. So I thought, well, that might help, especially if it's something that, like, they only have one or two left. Maybe they'll mark it down so they can clear it out of the store.
Okay, I've got a comment about Aldi.
Okay.
I have a quick comment about Aldi. Yes, they do have that double back guarantee. So let's say you buy something, as Cathy said, and it's not what you thought. Let's say it's defective. Well, if you bring it back, they will give you another one. Presumably it's not defective. And they'll give you the money that you spent to buy it back as well. So you get your money back and you get a replacement. Well, we bought some pasta and it had bugs in it. And we brought it back. And they would only give us a credit. They would not give us a replacement and money back. So they reneged on their double back guarantee. Now that's in Lebanon, Missouri. So, I'm just saying that's Aldi. So Aldi is not as good as it used to be. It used to be top of the line. Well, they replaced their manager. They've got a different person there. And, the rules have changed, at least in the local Aldi. So we don't go there anymore. We don't go to that Aldi. If anyone goes, it would have to be at a different Aldi, but not the one in Lebanon, Missouri. So I just wanted to share that with you. Cathy and I'll be right back. So it's not just Aldi that has bugs in their pasta. By the way, Cathy, when we returned the pasta to Aldi, we caused a national emptying of the shelves because of the bugs that were in their pasta. Literally, I'm not exaggerating. We did that at the Finelli family. And also, Great Value has the same problem. And I don't know if it's the same manufacturer that Aldi and Great Value use or what, but both of them have bugs before. And this is regular, pasta, spaghetti, if you will. And, why did we get those? Because that was all that was available at the time. So you may, now if you have bugs in your pasta, I would absolutely make sure that Walmart and Aldi know about it. And I wouldn't take it. I mean, I wouldn't stand for it. I would go back there if if you're willing to go to the store and be safe, of course, if you do that. But I would absolutely make sure that you, got them to, replace it or give you your money back. I wouldn't stand for substandard products like that. And that's what's happening. David in Illinois called and said that even in green beans, he's finding sticks and twigs and things. And that's right. Our food is going down in quality, in America. It is. Cathy, what's next?
Well, Vince, you and I had talked about pasta before, and Sam's has a good price on their pasta. That you and I, was it like 5 something? I believe for. Yeah.
It is, in my opinion. Cathy, have you tried it? Have you tried that particular pasta?
Yes, I have. I actually have. I went and got 3 boxes of it.
Okay. So do you want me to explain this, or do you want to explain this?
No, go ahead then.
Okay. So class, Dr. Shealy is very concerned about wheat. And there's a belief that Italian pasta or European pasta does not have the chemicals that our wheat has. So I bought some pasta from Sam's Club. It's $4 and change per box of 6 pounds. There is no less expensive pasta anywhere on the planet that I've found. So if you have an account with them that is a $100 membership with free shipping, you can order one item or you can order a bunch of items. So if you want, you can try it, and for less than $5, that's tax excluded, you can get 6 pounds of pasta, and it's made in Italy, and it is by far, in my opinion, the best pasta on the planet. Comes in a red box, and it takes twice as long to cook at least. It is more filling, and it would be more firm than what you would typically get with American pasta. It's better than every pasta on the planet. It is fabulous. And I sent Cathy an email, and I told her I bought it and I tried it. I sent it to her weeks ago, and I was anxious to hear what her review of it is. Is it everything I said, Cathy, or not?
No, it's very good, and you can tell the difference, Vince. I really like it. And to add to that, I did get, before this pandemic started, a couple of years ago, Costco had their organic pasta from Italy, and it was 10 pounds, and it was like $12, which is a great price for organic pasta. And that's similar to what I tested them both, and they're similar. Same thing, they're firm. You can tell the difference. I thought the same thing. I thought that Italy does not have the GMO products in it, the wheat. So that's what I go for. Wherever I'm short, I either go to Sam's or I go to Costco and get their pasta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm trying to look it up right now. Sam's site is pretty slow. It's starting to come up. I can give you the exact information. Okay. Members Mark spaghetti pasta, 1 pound packages. There are 6 1-pound packages in a cardboard box, and it is out of stock. Didn't used to be out of stock, but it is now, and it was about $5 or less. No, they raised the price. It says $5.69. It was $4.68. So they raised the price, and they say it's top rated, and it is, in my book. Cathy, what else do you have for us today?
Well, Vince, this is something, talking about protecting our furniture. A couple years ago, I did ask for this for a Christmas present. They make a table runner that is washable, like you can wipe it down. It's like almost like a vinyl, and it's got like a foam in between, but they make them where they're heat resistant, and they go up to 350 degrees, and you can find them online, and they're wonderful. You can I don't put something scalding hot, but I can, any kind of warmer dishes I put on my table, it protects my wood table.
Yeah, that's what, we protect all our furniture. Our furniture is all wood, and it's all antiques that my mom has bought. It probably was painted with several coats of paint, and then she stripped it all, and so everything we have here in the house is old, and it's been hand refinished by my mom, so we protect it. We even have the old ice box that my grandmother had from the 1900s, 1920s. Cathy, thanks so much for being with us. This hour, I'm going to be with Bert Bertonis. And he's in California. He's a patent holder. He's a radio frequency engineer. He's a degreed engineer. He has also has a master's in business administration. And I've known Bert for just under 50 years. So almost 50 years. If you're going to round, it'd be 50 years. Welcome, Bert.
Welcome, Vince. Glad to be here. I don't think 50 years is a long time. I don't think it's almost that long, but time does fly.
Well, okay. Early 1970s?
Late.
No.
Late, well, mid.
Well, you're talking graduation dates. I'm talking, like freshman year.
Yeah. Boy, man, time, hard to believe, because I feel like we're still there. some days.
If we were still there, we'd be in the Who Scout.
And I don't know if they're having classes there or not, but man, what a crazy year this has been.
You're absolutely right. So I understand that you were going to interview me today rather than me ask you questions. Is that right?
You are correct. So, I think a lot of your listeners would appreciate learning how this show came about. I think you have a little bit different radio show because you're not out there necessarily talking, about the news of the day. Obviously, you touch on it. It affects us in every way. But you're focused on really helping the listener and how they can improve their lives. So that's something a little different, and I think a lot of your listeners would appreciate learning how this came about. How did you end up doing this every weekday morning? And
okay.
So let's. I guess my first question is, when was the first time you went on the air? I believe it was subbing in for something else, which is how a lot of people started on radio. And, tell us about that day and how it evolved.
Well, radio, I've always been interested in radio, and I know you have, and you built a radio transmitter when you were in high school and broadcasted in the local area.
By the way, what's the statute of limitations on that?
Well, I'm sure it's expired, so I don't think anyone is going to come after anybody who broadcasted low power AM or FM, back in the 1960s, 70s, for example. So I don't think that's of any concern. But and low power AM and FM is legal. We
were a tad over that. I think it was 100 milliwatts was legal.
No, it's that's right. 100 milliwatts is legal, right?
Yeah, we were, let's say, a couple of log points past that.
Yeah. Well, it helps the signal go farther, and the antenna height helps too. But it also is measured by the FCC in effective radiated power. So watts is one thing, and how it's measured out, and how it's received is another thing. So, so I've been interested in radio for a long time, but what I was not interested in is public speaking. So in elementary school, high school, university, I did everything I could to avoid public speaking. And when we were in school together, that I didn't take any public speaking classes because I was allergic to that. So that being said, I've always been interested in preparedness. And let me give you an example. And let me ask you a question. So when you make hamburgers, when you buy beef and you make hamburger patties, did anything that I've ever done influence how you make hamburger patties?
Actually, Vince, it was my mom, and if you want to talk food, that barbecued hamburgers are my specialty. I think a little bit but it's really a recipe passed down from my mom growing up, and my barbecued hamburgers are delicious. I'll just give you a hint. It's the onion.
Mm-hmm. I know that, but that's not specifically what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when we used to go to the store and buy food for those of us who were living together, the three guys, for example, we would buy ground beef in a large container, and then we would make hamburger patties when we came back to our living quarters. That's what I'm talking about. Buying in bulk, making hamburger patties, putting them in the freezer, and then we'd have them for use later on. That's what I'm talking
absolutely. About. And by the way, one of these days we should tell that bacon story.
Well, let's talk about it off the air before we talk about it on the air. So anyway, what I'm saying is I've always been interested in preparedness. And when Bert and I were roommates, we, I would select a large package of ground beef, and we would come back to our living quarters and university housing, and we would make hamburger patties, flatten them out, put them in the freezer, and we'd have them for a couple of weeks. And so we saved money doing that. And so I have always been like this. I have, and I'm talking about from the 70s. I haven't changed. And what I wanted to do was I believed that the world was going to change. I believe that this pandemic that we are now in, the corona panic that we are now in, was coming. But I didn't know if it was going to be an electromagnetic pulse. I didn't know if it was going to be a grid down situation. I didn't know if it was going to be a war. I didn't know what it was, but I believed it was coming. And so here it is. So I thought that I'd like to share some of these ways of doing things the way we do them with other people, especially my outlaws and my in-laws and, blood relatives. But I couldn't really get too much interest. No one was really interested in buying more baked beans, more paper towels, having an extra tube of toothpaste or, baking soda for toothpaste. They weren't interested. And I got nowhere. So I thought, well, what we could do, or what I could do, is have a preparedness kind of an expo and share those thoughts, but have other people come and say the things that are kind of like what I say, and get a whole bunch of people together, provide seminars, very low cost, break even, not have an expo to make money, but just to cover the costs. And in order to do that, in order to attract people, including my in-laws and outlaws, I needed to have some advertising. So what kind of advertising? It'd be radio, television, posters, handbills, those kinds of things, newspaper. And so I went to a radio station. It was the little radio station in Springfield, Missouri, and met with the manager. There were a couple of us involved. And the manager was so impressed with this concept that he said, I'll give you a radio show once a week, 1 hour a week. And it was terrifying to me because I'm allergic to public speaking.
Now, was this before you did the first advertisement, or was it after you'd already started putting a few advertisements for the Preparedness Expo on the air?
No, this was before. This was in preparation for Expo number 1. This was in preparation for that. So, it was an offer that was kind of hard to turn down. So I was willing to do that. And the reason I wanted to go to the small radio station was to learn how it works before going to a big radio station. Really what I wanted to do was buy advertising, commercial time, have, commercials. But I didn't know how radio commercials worked. I didn't know if they're 15 seconds, 30 seconds, who writes them, who produces them, whose voice you use, how much it costs, how much, a 30-second spot is, how much a 1-minute spot is, placement of the spots, how that all worked. I didn't know. So I had to learn. So I started with the small radio station first. And, after broadcasting, let's say, for a couple of weeks, the big radio station wanted us. So off I went to the big radio station, and I did 2 years, 5 days a week, 1 hour. And so that was part of the promotion for the expo. But I've been a complete failure in terms of getting my relatives, in-laws and outlaws, to come to the expo. No one's come. Not one. Not one of my in-laws or outlaws has ever expressed any interest at all in coming to the expo. So in those terms, I've been a complete failure at making that happen. But what did happen was I began teaching classes on the radio. It wasn't infomercials. It was how to do things. The same kind of things that we teach right here, right now. And we started bringing more and more people in to, instructors, you and a whole bunch of others. And that's how radio started. The reason for it was I wanted to teach people how to get through what I believed was going to be a mess, a catastrophe, a pandemic, if you will, like what we're going through. And what happened was when this pandemic hit, the corona panic, those are my words, corona panic. When that hit, immediately you couldn't get flour, yeast, toilet paper, paper towels, latex gloves. There were a whole bunch of things that evaporated almost immediately from the store shelves. The supply chain broke. And that's what I fully expected, and that's what I wanted to teach people how to prepare themselves for. And that's the whole purpose of this. And as you mentioned, USA Prepares doesn't sell anything. We don't have an agenda other than getting people better able to cope with and survive this mess that we are in, because we saw this coming. But one of the things that I get wrong often is timing. I expect it's going to happen sooner than it does, and it usually happens later than I expect it to happen. So here we are, and that's USA Prepares in a nutshell. All of us are volunteers. Nobody gets paid. And Genesis Communications Network is kind enough to allow USA Prepares to broadcast without charging us. They don't charge us. And it costs them money to have us on the air. It does. It costs them engineering time. It costs them equipment, internet, all those office expenses, all that. It is expensive. And they do it because I believe they like our message. We show up on time. We don't cause problems, technical problems for them. And we do what we say we're going to do. And they like us. And so they provide this opportunity for us to share our message. So maybe they can sell commercial time on USA Prepares. I hope they can. And the commercials that you do here on Genesis Communications Network are theirs. We don't get any of that revenue. None. We'll be right back with Bert Bertonis. He's asking me why we do what we do here at USA Prepares. Bertonis is with us, and he's interviewing me. And Bert, I just wanted to mention, back to those hamburger patties for just a second. So that little technique, that's something that's in my book, my unfinished, unpublished, unavailable, not for sale book that I've been writing. That's one of the tips about how I do things and how our family does things. And so that technique of buying beef in bulk, the kind of beef that you want, making your own hamburger patties, freezing them, has enabled you to save about 25% versus the cost of buying those preformed discs of beef that are in the refrigerated section of the meat department of the supermarket. So for almost 50 years, you've been able to save 25% of the cost of hamburgers. It's as simple as that, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So, Vince, it's a very interesting story. So can you give the listeners an example of, and I know you get a lot of feedback and listeners call in and tell you stories. Can you give us an example of someone you helped who listened, either went to one of the preparedness expos or was listening to one of your guests on your show, and what might have touched their lives and helped them in something that subsequently happened to them because of listening to USA Prepares?
Well, that's really difficult because I believe I've been an abject failure. Now, let me give you an example. So I got a communique, email from someone who was listening to USA Prepares, and they said, hey, we have been listening to you, and we've been listening to this other guy on another network. And we want to move from the Southwest to Missouri. And we'd like to come out there and meet with you, meet with him, and get your thoughts on buying a farm. I said, sure, I'd be glad to do it. And this was couple of years ago, maybe several years ago. And I said, if you're serious, I'll do it, and I'll spend a day with you. No charge. Absolutely no charge. No hidden agenda. I'll show you our farm. I'll show you what you should look for. I'll drive you around in my vehicle, and I'll show you what works, what doesn't work, mistakes, and costs. I'll tell you what things cost. And so I spent the day. Mrs. Finelli spent part of the day with us. It was a husband and wife team. And my final recommendation to them is to do what we did. And that was, don't buy someone else's house on a farm. Buy the land and make your own mistakes. Build your own house. Look for lower taxes. Get away from lots of high density population areas. Go rural, low taxes, less government help, meaning no one's snooping to check you out. Less government help in terms of restrictions, building codes, building inspections, that kind of thing. And so I said that the only thing I would like in return is whatever you decide to do. I'd like you to come on the air with us and tell us what went into the decision that you made, what you saw, what you liked, what you didn't like, and why you did what you did, and maintain privacy. They didn't have to tell us exactly where they bought, etc.
Well, what was wrong with that?
Nothing that I can think of. But what happened was they didn't do it. They listened to another guy, the other guy who's on another network. He's a little older than I am. And they listened to his advice. They bought an old run-down farmhouse that needed lots of work in an area with higher taxes and higher population density. They spent more money and they got less for it, and they never called in. So what I'm saying is I've been trying to teach people how to do it, and I've been a failure at doing it. There was a property a couple miles down the road from us, and you've been on our road, just, let's say 5 miles away or less. It was 1 square mile, 640 acres, and we were going to sell it at about $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 per acre. And it had an entrance, it had infrastructure, it had everything you could possibly want. And it was already divided into 2, 5, 10, 20 acre parcels. And I could only get a few people just remotely interested. Mentioning it, discussing it for 3 months on the air, that people would be interested in buying, a 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 acre parcel for, between roughly $1,000 and $1,500 an acre. It had roads were in, it had ponds, streams, it had an area for houses. It had an area for an automotive shop, a school, businesses, barns. It was all there. Everything was there. It was defendable. Taxes would be about roughly $25 a year on each one of the parcels. And, we didn't have anyone not one person who was serious about, buying a piece of it. And so I tried that about a year ago. Again, a couple of 100 acre piece, $1,500 an acre. Prices have changed. And it was a Plan B location. So if you're concerned about what might happen and you want a Plan B location and you could have it all ready, we would have some barns, we'd have a workshop for farming. We'd have half of the 200 acres would be for everyone to not necessarily, I won't use the word share, but use for growing produce, farming, grazing animals, that kind of thing. And the other would be for living. And for $1,500, you could buy 1 acre. You could own it. There'd be some restrictions. You just couldn't do anything with it. It had to be commensurate with the goals of we'll call it the village. And only one person was remotely interested in that. So I would say that was an abject failure as well. So I've had way more failures than I've had successes.
Well, we all learn.
And I guess yeah. Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I probably am the most fired person on radio. I've been fired from every single radio outlet I've been on except one, and that's the one we're on right now. Genesis has never said anything but kind words to me, has never done anything to try to alter, influence, or change our message. That's Genesis Communications Network, the network we're on now. Other than that, I've been fired from every other outlet, every single one. So let me ask
you this.
Yeah.
I I know you're not doing the preparedness expos anymore. Given that we're in a whole nother world now and things have changed, do you think when the pandemic subsides, you might consider having a expo again, maybe with some renewed interest?
No, and I'll tell you why. It is exceedingly difficult to have an expo, and I'll tell you why. Because even the people who profess to be preparedness experts can't seem to plan. So here's how it works. So let's say you want to find a venue. Most of the venues are owned either by the city government, the county government, or a combination of city-county, because no one else can afford those kinds of venues. So they have them. And they are booked typically about a year, 9 months to a year in advance. So if you find the venue and you negotiate pricing, let's say it costs you $10,000 to have a venue. You say, okay, I'll put a deposit on the venue and I'll start contacting exhibitors. You call up the exhibitors and you say, hey, here's the venue. Here's what we're going to be doing. And would you like to be part of it? Well, I don't know. Okay, when do you think you'll know? Call me 30 days before the event and I'll let you know. That's how it goes. So you've got this venue. You're on the hook for it. You've got to advertise it way before 30 days before the event, and you don't even know who's going to show up. So because of the lack of preparedness, the lack of conscientiousness of the exhibitors who pay for probably half of the cost of the event, you can't count on them. Some of them don't even show up. So some of them will say, I'll pay you when I get there. And so because of their inability to commit, I'm not willing to commit, which is exactly what happened with that 640 acres. And it's exactly what happened with the 200 acres. Okay. I mean,
what about
there are
doing
plenty
a
of people
virtual event on using Zoom or Jitsi?
Well, Bert, believe it or not, I don't have an interest anymore. My interest that I had got up and left. So what I am interested in doing is what I'm doing right now with you. I'm interested in broadcasting because it's really simple. I don't have to depend on a lot of people. I don't have to depend on, let's say, 100 exhibitors or more. I don't have to do that. I just depend on you. And I just depend on Cathy or Sharon or Kyle or John Reagan, or, you know what I'm saying? It's, Rich Sheehan, Norm Shealy. So
you are doing the same thing in a sense, but each show you highlight an individual guest with an individual topic, whether it be, organic fertilizer or, best tomatoes to grow or, housing construction. That's
right. That's exactly right. And here's, you know what as I mentioned earlier in this hour, I was allergic to public speaking. I'm not allergic to it anymore. After almost 10 years of this, my allergy, got up and left. So what I used to do is I used to have this concern that the instructor would not show up. So let's say, for example, I would have an instructor on, let's say, a Friday. What I would do in the past, I'm talking years ago, is I would contact them 2 weeks before, a week before, still good, 3 days before, the night before, still good, reconfirming. And my concern was the instructor wouldn't show up. And many times that has happened. And so what I used to do is run a rerun. I would have our engineer prepare a rerun, and at a moment's notice, we would run a rerun. Well, I don't do that anymore. What I do now is I have my book in front of me. And if the instructor doesn't show up, it's okay. I mean, it'd be nice if the instructor did show up. But if something happens and the instructor can't show up, I just go to the book. It's as simple as that. And I don't. So what I've learned how to do is to not be concerned about public speaking. And I cured myself of that. I cured myself of dyslexia. I cured myself of fear of public speaking. And I just would stand up in front of seminars and if you know the topic, there's absolutely no reason to be afraid of public speaking. If you know the topic. If you don't know the topic, you ought to be afraid of public speaking because you're going to look like a fool, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very interesting how it evolved. I'd say right now, where you are right now, do you have a favorite topic? I know you have some guests who come on a regular basis, but what's your favorite topic now, given that, and obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic, but what would you say to that?
My favorite topic has never changed, and it is all things preparedness. And my definition of preparedness is having what you need before you need it. It's as simple as that. An example of that would be how many people will open, if you say, are you prepared? I mean, do you have enough food? I'm not talking about you specifically, but, if you're talking with somebody, you guys okay? Think you can, last for a while? Oh yeah, we're good. We have plenty of food. Plenty. And those are the same people who, open the refrigerator to make dinner and they go, geez, there's nothing to eat. So being prepared is having what you need before you need it. And what I try to do is I try to ferret out as much of the truth in this morass of propaganda, lies, deception, obfuscation, confusion that's out there. And I try to share with our class my take on it, what I think is going to happen and what I'm doing about it. So I don't just say, y'all ought to do this. I do it and then say, here's what I've done and here's what you might want to consider. I mean, we rang the alarm bell for getting food. We said that the early, like in January, that the term I coined was the Corona panic was going to happen. And the Corona panic would probably be worse than the virus itself because of the shortages that would follow. And here we are. I mean, you can't buy, paper products at a reasonable price anymore. Now the price is inflated. If you want to buy latex gloves, rubber gloves that, like you work on an automobile with, exam gloves, if you want to call them that the medical profession uses. We use them in our automotive shop. Well, we used to be able to buy them for about $7 for 100. Now it's double or triple that. Why? Because they can get it. That's supply and demand. And so the supply chain is broken. And we warned of this. So what I probably enjoy doing the best is providing my take on the way I see things and what I would do about it. Not you all do it and I'll do something else. I only talk about things that I do. I talk about things, brands that I like, products that I like, and products that I don't like. And you know what's interesting about that? No one has threatened me. No company has said, y'all better stop talking about our stuff and stop bashing us for making a lousy product. They've never done that because they know that the only thing that would happen if they did that is I would increase the voltage and increase the current. And I would amp up and bash them more for being, deceptive and building bad products and not honoring their warranties. So those are the things that I enjoy doing. I don't enjoy beating people up, companies, but, if they do something that is, to the disadvantage or harms the little guy, that makes me crazy. And I go after those people.
And you have had, various viewpoints and opposing views on your show. And, I think, listeners can make up their own minds about some of the things that are discussed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, generally what I believe there's a finite amount of time that each person has on the planet. And, I'm not saying that it's predetermined. I'm just saying that you get what you're going to get and that's it. So I don't want to waste time. I do not want to waste time. And I was told when I first started radio by the big radio station, hey, Vinny, what you should talk about? Hamburgers. Who's got the best hamburgers in Springfield? That's great radio. I said, I'm not interested in doing that. And I didn't realize that what they were trying to tell me is, if you don't knock off, some of your opinions, you're going to be out of here. And they threw me overboard. But because I didn't understand that I wasn't supposed to be talking about fluoride in the water and giving out, the telephone number of the city manager and telling my listeners to give him a call and tell him he's fired. I didn't realize that I wasn't supposed to do that. So I got fired. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is, we are the voice of the little people. That's who we are. We're all volunteers. Nobody gets paid. And we do have opposing viewpoints, but I try not to have people on the air who are going to fight with me. Not that I'm allergic to fights, because that's not the case. I just think time is so short and so valuable that we have one message, and that is the right message. Bert Bertonis is with us, and he's interviewing me, class, and asking me questions about USA Prepares and why we do what we do. Bert, back to you.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, we did not pre-rehearse any questions or what we were going to talk about, so this is totally sincere and off the cuff from both our standpoints. So let me ask you, change the topic a little more light topic. I know you're a car enthusiast. I think the listeners all know that. Tell us, what would you say is your favorite vehicle to drive? And then secondly, what's your favorite car to work on?
Okay. As you know, Bert, you've been to our farm. You've been to Virginia. You've been to our farm here in Missouri. You've been to my parents' homes. I've been to yours. And so we've known each other for a long time, and we've worked on each other's cars. The cars that I like, and I've had a lot of cars. I don't think I've shared quite this list with the class, but I will, since you asked. I've owned and driven a lot of different marquees. Porsche, Ferrari, Maserati, Lotus, Mercedes, BMW, Ford, Chevy, Chrysler. And the vehicles that I like to work on are the simple ones. The ones without computers. The ones that have mechanical driven systems, like mechanical fuel injection or carburetors. The greater the sophistication, the more problematic I find them, the less I like to work on them. People might think that a Ferrari is just an exquisite, top-of-the-line, wonderful automobile. Well, we have one that looks just like Magnum PI's Ferrari. We have it. It's a 1980 308. It's mechanically fuel injected. It is a race car with a beautiful body on it. In terms of reliability, if it got me there, I would be surprised. If it got me back, I'd be really surprised. We have a tow dolly to bring our cars home because they don't necessarily make it all the way round trip. Ferrari, Maserati are miserable cars in terms of reliability. Lotus is even worse. We have a couple antique cars, actually a bunch of antique cars. We have two American Motors AMXs. One's red, one's blue. I had it in college. It's the one that blue one with the white stripes over it, the skunk stripes, whatever they call them. That's probably my favorite car of all cars.
And those are probably easier to work on, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. I've had the engine in and out of that blue AMX 394 speed 13 times. Used to race it at the track. You went with us. We went to the drag strips, out by the university. So yeah, I like the simple, easier to work on vehicles. I don't like the ones that are so computer complex that you cannot figure out what's wrong. You don't know if it's the fuel injection system or the computer. You don't know if it's the battery or the computer. You don't know if it's electromagnetic interference from the alternator cabling or the computer. It's so, you know, it used to be that if you stepped on the gas pedal, it was mechanical linkage, either levers or cables that would control the carburetor butterfly. Now, when you step on the accelerator, you are stepping on a potentiometer, which is a volume control. It's a variable resistor that controls how much signal the computer gets to apply the correct amount of fuel and air from the fuel injection system and the timing. So it's almost impossible to work on the late model cars. And the newest car that I'm working on is personally in our fleet is a 2004. And I have an old 2004 Chevy pickup truck. It's a full-size pickup truck, crank-up windows, rubber floor mats, basic. It has air conditioning, but it has, you know, nothing special seats. And I love it. And it works great. And I know that if I put the key in the door, it's going to work. I know that I'm not going to be locked out of my car because of some electromagnetic anomaly or a dead battery. I know, you know, I guess my favorite vehicle is my truck. I have a 2001 Chevy pickup truck, short bed, 5-speed manual transmission, V6, real plain. That's my favorite vehicle of all the vehicles.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fun.
Did you learn anything different from what you knew about me before? Or?
Well, it was interesting hearing about the show, and I think I agree with you. Simpler is better in cars.
Yeah. Hey, Bert, it'd be great to have you move right near here, be our neighbor. Why don't you consider that? That'd be great. I'd love it. Bert, thanks so much for being with us and sharing your questions.